flash floods in Israel that trapped a group of high school students with at least 9 teens reported dead, another 17 that had to be rescued, and unfortunately one still missing. Joining us now in the studio is Jason Blankfield. He is a former member of an elite search and rescue squad in the Israeli Defense Forces. Thank you for joining us, Jason. First of all, just if you can, give us the background. What are the challenges in search and rescue in this kind of environment, this kind of severe flooding?
There's a lot of different challenges because there's a lot of different people in play. So we have people on the ground and we also have people in the air which are giving the feedback. And the commanders that are there on the ground, they're going to make the best decision to do the best possible to rescue those who need to be rescued.
All right, I want to go much more in-depth on how to deal with those kind of challenges and what you see when you hear about those 9 students killed. But first, let's get an update from our diplomatic correspondent, Mike Wagenheim. He's at the pre-military academy, Bnei Zion, where those students came from. Mike, what's the latest you have from there?
We've seen more activity, Norit, in the last hour and a half. Some current students and their parents and family members have been making their way in and out. The looks on their faces, obviously, of shock, of grief. We've seen some tears. We've seen some flowers brought out here. Members of the neighborhood have been stopping by as well to express their condolences. Keep in mind, these students that were on this bonding trip are not actually students here yet. They enrolled for this pre-military training academy to get ready for service in the IDF, but their classes were not supposed to start until September. This was a bonding trip that they were going on over these last couple of days to try to get used to life in the Israeli desert, used to life in a pre-military training academy. And unfortunately, at least 9 of those aren't going to make it to the first day of class here in September.
And Mike, supposedly some of the students before going out on this trip on social media expressing their own concerns. There's going to be a lot of questions being asked about why they went out in this kind of weather.
Yeah, that's going to be question number 1 here coming up over the next few days as the investigation kicks off here. The Israel Meteorological Service had issued a number of warnings, dire warnings about hiking in the desert, especially in certain areas. Keep in mind this pre-military training academy, very, very experienced in terms of hiking, in terms of going out into nature. They have a number of full-time and part-time guides that are part of the professional staff here, all accredited. So it is a wonder why exactly they did not heed the glaring advice that was out there and decided to make this trip in the end under such harsh conditions, and especially in desert conditions where things can get overwhelming very quickly, as we've seen over the last 24 hours.
Jason, Micah just pointed to that, those desert conditions, how dangerous they can get. Most of us are used to thinking of desert as dry, period. Explain to us why this particular situation, that kind of flooding, that kind of rain in a desert environment is so dangerous.
There's a lot of different factors that are going on. Anytime that you're working with a flood, it comes with a lot of the risks that are involved with it. But our unit 669, we do a lot of training. Our training is very intense and it's very long. And we work with all different types of rescue operations from around the country in this type of situation. So the challenges are, there's a lot of dangers. For example, if we're going to do a rescue, we could take a cable from the helicopter and basically wrap something around the person and bring them up. And obviously the person rescuing, he can get caught under the water, which is an extremely dangerous situation. And also, if he gets caught underneath, then the helicopter can also be dragged with them. So there's a lot of different things that need to be taken into consideration with weather forecasts like there is. But we do everything we can to get it done safely and correctly.
Now, apparently, based on the information we have, those efforts have been suspended now because of the darkness, despite what we're hearing reports of at least 1 person still missing. What goes on in that kind of decision to be made when night comes if it's too risky to go out?
From my experience, we do everything possible to get the person back or to find the person that's missing. So there will also be people on the ground that will be able to give information to the Air Force and everything like that. There's thermals that we can use to see people that are still out there, night vision, lights, whatever needs to happen. From my experience, they'll bring all the necessary equipment to keep the search going.
When you see, and you heard our Mike Wagenheim reporting with the sort of already accusations flying of recklessness, when you see those images, it's hard to imagine why anybody at all, never mind a group, would go into those kinds of conditions. Does that ring true to you, recklessness?
Firstly, my condolences to the people that are involved in this, to friends, to family, to anyone who's in this situation. All I can say is that the non-profit that works with 669, they actually teach people how to travel safely and how to do these trips in a safe and smart way. But I think precaution needs to be taken when there's weather like this and in these types of situations.
Walk us through that a little bit. What kind of precautions should people take?
Planning. I think correct planning, and the great thing is that the workshops that the non-profit does within the unit, it really goes out to different people in different organisations and teaches them exactly the steps that they need to take and takes them step by step to what needs to happen to make sure, or to try as little as possible for this not to.
I wonder on an emotional level, does that affect you, you and other members of the units, if, for example, you're in a situation where you do the best you possibly can, but it is still not effective in saving a life?
We have a lot of training, and it's a very long training, and emotions, they are very important. At the same time, we need to have a clear mind. Our main goal is to rescue someone and to make sure that we get everyone, including our team, back safely. So we're all combat medics. We all have a lot of experience in the water with diving, with cables, with ropes in weather like this. We might need to use ropes as well. So we do everything we can, and we just make sure that the person that gets onto the helicopter, we give them best treatment possible, or even on the ground in this case, which might happen. We give them best treatment possible and get them as quickly as possible to
Jason,
safety.
You mentioned planning ahead, which is certainly ideal, but what if somebody finds themselves, as I imagine all of these teens did find themselves in this situation in extremely dangerous conditions? What then? What should people do in those moments to improve their chances of survival?
Just try to stay calm, try to call the right people. As soon as you call for help, the system works really, really well and really efficiently. It'll get to the right people at the right time. And once it's in the hands of the professional people, then things usually go a lot more smoothly.
All right, Jason Blankfield and our Mike Wagenheim.